for others to come in, and then we've got something special planned for you. So just a few more minutes, but come on in the door and get ready to start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Come on in, and we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm Terry Brock, your Master of Ceremonies, and I just have a quick question as we get started. How many of you have worked with technology ever, and there was a little something that didn't work right? Anyone? Has that ever happened to anyone here? Yeah. Those things happen, and so when you do you just give up on all technology? No, yeah, we did. We don't. Well, no, you say, okay, hold it. We're going to turn it around. What can we do? And guess what? We've had a wonderful opportunity to learn about that this morning. And now I have good news for you. We have Jesse Ventura. He's getting ready. He was given some wrong information. I don't know how, but it happened. So now we're going to roll with it. And here's what I want to do. I want to make this a very special time for you. At any moment, they'll be ready. We'll come out from the back room and we'll get going. But we're on the final day of the conference here. Often we know that we remember best when we repeat something. When something is repeated, it helps us to remember that. So what I want to do is ask you for something that has been particularly memorable and worthwhile that you've seen at the conference over the last 2 days. Anyone have something they want to share that has been particularly outstanding? You heard a speaker, or you heard something that you thought, hey, that was really good. Anything? Yes, Jim. Yes, Roger Ver announcing $100 million for sovereign territory. I don't know about the rest of you, but where I grew up out in the country, we call that serious money. So, $100 million, I think that says something about it. And we do it. Jim, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, just the fact that that is there. Yeah, we'd be real skeptical, anyone other than Roger. Yeah, it seems like we're seeing the whole key of what Nexus Conference is about and what Nexus is about. Decentralization. Rather than consolidating all the power in one area, as it's been done in the days of old, now we do it empowering people, empowering individuals to make their own decisions, make their own ideas, and live their lives the way they want, peacefully, interacting with others all around the planet. So I think some real good options there. Any other insights or ideas? Yes? Joby Weeks, yes, that was a memorable thing. Joby Weeks gave Peter Schiff Satoshi's white paper. Now, what does all that mean in English for those that might not know any of those names? How fast can you run? Can you run up here and talk? I think it'd be better if you say it first. Let's go. You get your exercise in this way, too. Come on, let's give him a round of applause for coming on up. And what is your name? Jordan Page.
Yes, okay. I was one of the presenters on Thursday, and I'll be performing here in a little bit. So Joby's a good buddy of mine, and he's a big proponent of blockchain technology, obviously, and presented here yesterday. And he's got a huge data mining center, a Bitcoin mining center in Iceland, and they had a panel with him and Peter Schiff, and they had a very heated exchange. It was very entertaining to watch, and in the end, Joby gave Peter Satoshi's white paper in a little pamphlet. And skeptical as he was, he put it in his pocket and committed to reading it. So I thought that was a pretty big victory. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. Yeah, that was huge because how many of you saw the debate? It was there. That was, shall we say, lively, right? I mean, to say lively, yeah, they were jumping up and shouting and all this, and I think it shows what's going on in the industry, and you are right here in the midst of it, right at the crux point of all of this happening right now. We're seeing the traditional ideas, not only in monetary policy, gold and using central banks, et cetera, now moving toward something different. And are we going to do it right every time? No. Sometimes we're going to have some bumps in the night. Sometimes we're going to have some oh whoops, but we don't stop. We pick it up and run with it again. I think we had another question. Was that a question in the back? Yes, shout it out there. $8 trillion a day in banks doing daily business. Visa makes $100 million a day. And that cryptocurrency can do that. In a way, I got to say, it reminds me, and see if you can relate to this, what it was like in the early days of computers. I remember, and I could go way back to like the 70s. I remember I was just starting the MBA program, and we were studying computers, and we had to learn all this code and stuff and all that. I mean, even just a prereq stuff. And I remember going to the professor and asking a question about computers and does he work with computers? And he said, oh no, those things aren't going anywhere. Those little computers, those microcomputers aren't going to do anything. And we have now seen, of course, what they've done. He was wrong, even though he was a very smart guy and knew technology a lot. We're hearing the same parallel arguments now when we talk about cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency versus what is out there with more mainstream. You know, the trillions of dollars that are available, and now we do a few hundred million, which is nothing. But I think we're seeing the beginning, and right now is the time to definitely study, learn more, investing your time, money, and energy in what's going on with this. And what does it mean? What do those terms mean that sound kind of goofy and I don't understand? Your natural inclination for the brain is to go, oh, I don't understand that. Oh, that's over my head. Okay, we understand that, but stop for a moment. Go back and look at the one term and try to figure that out. Slowly, you're learning a new language. Much as if you had to learn a brand new language, you would take it a little piece at a time. Having a barrage of information hurts. And then what you want to do is tie into really good people that you can respect and that are creating good material that you can learn from. I love listening to podcasts. I love listening to people that are really smart. Matter of fact, Eric Voorhees is here. Eric, raise your hand if you don't mind. He is here. This is a man that we've not met before, but I've been following him on podcasts. I've been listening to what he says. He has been educating me, so thank you, sir, for the education via podcasts and via other areas, and there's a lot of people doing that. I would encourage you to go out and listen to some podcasts. Now, there's a bunch of them out there. Some of them are really, really good. Some of them not quite so good. That's okay. You can learn by listening to these and growing. And by doing that, then we get a chance to learn a lot. We get a chance to grow, and you want to keep doing that. In addition to the podcasts, I would encourage you also to get on the websites of places like Cointelegraph, Bitcoin Magazine, and definitely Bitcoin.com. Find out what's going on a regular basis. There's going to be some things that'll be a little bit confusing. That's okay. Keep working with it and keep studying. Any other ideas or memorable events that you've seen through yesterday and today and the day before that? Yes, sir. Colin's 3D blockchain. What do you think of that? Wasn't that amazing? Whoa. I mean, that is definitely in the whoa Nelly category on that. What are your thoughts on it? And what's your name, sir? Sammy. Yeah, Sammy, would you mind coming over here? So you can just kind of run over there if you don't mind. Just so it'll be easier for me to hand you the microphone. Yeah, come on up here. That'll be fine. Let's give a round of applause to Sammy.
I mean, I'm no expert by any means on the blockchain, still understanding it all myself, but when Colin presented that yesterday, it just really blew my mind. So I took it as what Satoshi was doing and enhancing it further.
Excellent. All right, Sammy, thank you. Let's give him another round of applause. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to be here. Wow, I'm just so lucky to get a chance to talk with each of you. You're really cool. I love it. And the chance getting to meet with you, and I love to do that. And right now, we have a chance to do something that raises the bar of coolness to a whole new level. And that is that we get a chance to hear from John Haskell, our person here, Hazel, excuse me, why did I say that? Hazel, John, who's been running behind the scenes, taking everything under control. John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. Things off. We have a special speakers who can come up and speak for about 15 minutes and actually join the panel on our, we have a couple governor candidates, one from each side, and they'll be coming up here answering questions about Colorado and also getting things, talking about blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, which has never been done, as far as I know, in any form before, so we're really proud to have that today. Our next guest coming up, I think you all know him, and I'm excited to have him. I had the experience of getting a call saying, he's interested in coming. You have to call him, though, in 45 minutes because he doesn't use a phone. And I said, oh, okay. And I had a 2.5-year-old and a 4.5-year-old who just had gotten to a can of paint. And they were running around. I had one in the shower. One was next to me full of blue paint. And I looked down at my phone, I have 5% battery life. So well, okay. So I plug in the phone, I get the one child in the shower, the other one I've got under control, and call Jesse Ventura. So I have Jesse Ventura, who will be coming out in a minute. And right away, as soon as I said, Jesse, hi, I'm John Hazel. I'm directing a cryptocurrency blockchain conference. I'd really love for you to come to it. It'd be great to have you speak at it. And he says, John, I don't know anything about cryptocurrency or the blockchain. I go, well, you don't have to, that's fine. We want people to come up here with some other ideas and be able to share. Well, okay, I'm a dinosaur. I don't know about those things, but I guarantee if you get me up on stage, I'll say something. So I don't know exactly what he'll say when he comes out, but I guarantee he'll say something. So I'm really proud to introduce Jesse Ventura.
First of all, good morning. They told me it was 10 o'clock, and then they call me at 9 right when I'm getting out of the shower and say you got to be here in 5 or 10 minutes. So please excuse me on that account. I'll hang my jacket up here. Anyway, it's wonderful to be here. Aspen, Colorado. Never been here before. Been to Colorado, but never Aspen, but it's been very enjoyable. He's exactly right. I know nothing about this crypto stuff. You know, an alternative to, I guess, the Federal Reserve, an alternative to money, a way to invest and all that, but I'm learning. And I think that's what the majority of people that show up here want to do, learn about this. If you don't know me, I'll give my background quickly. I was born and raised in South Minneapolis. I graduated from Minneapolis Roosevelt High School. I was proudly, a couple years ago, inducted into the first Hall of Fame at my high school, the first one they ever had. And we had quite a, Minneapolis Roosevelt, we had quite a Hall of Fame. We had myself, we had a gentleman named Mike Ramsey, who, if you don't remember that name, he was part of what we call the Miracle on 80, when our United States hockey team defeated the Russians in the upset of the century, or maybe 2 centuries. But Mike was a big defenseman on that team playing for Herb Brooks. John Vesey went to my high school, the former head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as well as we had a Nobel Prize winner for science. So not bad for a South Minneapolis high school to produce people of that caliber. It was really amazing. Well, after I graduated from high school, I took the tough route. I enlisted into the United States Navy, ironically, September the 11th of 1969, at a time when it was not popular. The Tet Offensive had already happened over in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. The war had turned a little bit. It was no longer popular. We were really being lied to now. And I was one of them that volunteered. When I got to boot camp, my lottery number came out. I think I was 273. They never got to triple digits, so I wouldn't have had to have gone. But proudly being a Navy man, we've never drafted anyway. The Navy has never needed to. Most guys, when it gets down to brass tacks, would rather have 3 hots and a cot than to be laying in the dirt. The Navy lets you sleep in a bed usually. But from there in the Navy, I volunteered for what they call the Special Forces. You know of them today. When I was in, nobody knew of us, and that is the Underwater Demolition SEAL Team. We wore no emblems then, per se. We just wore marine greens. The only way we could be identified, we had jump wings. Today, they've turned them, in my opinion, into the Green Berets. They've done the same thing to them. And why? Because they now fall under the Army. The Navy SEALs are the Navy, but they fall under the Army, and that's what happens. I've been to Fort Benning. No apologies to all you Army guys out there, but I liked it better when we were solely with the Navy, and I liked it better when we were considered the quiet professionals. We didn't come home and write books. We didn't come home and look to Hollywood to promote us. In those days, nobody really knew we existed pretty much. Anyway, when I was discharged from there, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I had started riding motorcycles my last 2 years in the Navy, and I ended up becoming a full-patch member of one of the most notorious outlaw motorcycle clubs in America. I was 3rd in command, the Mongols, the black and white. I believe you have them here in Colorado now. I'll have fun forever. Mongols forever, forever Mongols. Anyway, though, there was a transition period. It was Vietnam. And let me tell you something, people. We didn't get parades. We didn't get thank you for your service. In fact, most of us didn't even acknowledge we were in the service for 10 years because we were blamed for the war. They blamed back then the soldier for the war, not who should have got the blame, which was the politician. Politicians start wars, soldiers don't. Soldiers are left to carry out. A war happens because politicians fail. Now, did you hear that? Wars happen because politicians fail. So with this stuff with North Korea now, if war happens, it will be because politicians have failed again. Because they're the failure that ultimately causes the wars. And then the poor, here's one thing I'll tell you. In my 6 years in the military, I never met one millionaire. In fact, I didn't even meet anyone who was considered exceptionally wealthy. Now, what does that tell you? Who's actually doing the fighting? Same as always, the poor people doing it for the rich. That simple. Cut and dry. Rich people don't go in. I laughed today. I listened to the president yesterday talking about how veterans are the greatest people in the world. They're da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, on and on and on, right? And then in a matter of 15 minutes, the whole crowd in Alabama's booing John McCain. Excuse me, last time I checked, he's a veteran. Last time I checked, the president was praising veterans. I guess they lose their veteran when they don't vote along with him. Then they're no longer considered, I guess. And as far as the president goes, all this hoorah about the military and how where's his two strapping boys? How come they didn't serve? How come he didn't? You notice that? The people that want to go to war and the people that start the wars are not the ones who fight them. They don't go. The rich don't go. The poor go. That's why I'm so anti-war today, and I encourage you all. There's a tremendous book written by Major General Smedley Darlington Butler. It was written about 100 years ago. It's called War is a Racket. I believe that book should be mandatory reading for every high school senior to graduate, to be forced to read that book. War is a Racket. Now, they've tried to take Major General Butler and downplay him and destroy his credibility in all this. They can't. Do you want to know why? Major General Butler didn't win one. He won 2 Congressional Medals of Honor. Now, how do you tell a 2-time Congressional Medal of Honor winner he doesn't know what war is? So that's who I found. And politically today, I'll tell you this. Okay, they want to build the wall. Well, first of all, don't we have Houston, Texas, and Florida? I think we need to fix them. I think we ought to put the wall on hold for about a decade while we fix 2 major areas of our own country due to these hurricanes. And I will tell you this, though. The wall will work. It will work. You want to know how I know? When I was governor, I went to China. And you have to go up the wall. Mao Zedong says you do. So I did. While you're there, when you're in their country, you do what they do. And so I looked at the wall and saw how massive it was. It goes up into the clouds. And I realized right there, it will work. I thought later, you want to know why I know it will work? Because to my knowledge, no Mexican has ever made it over the Great Wall of China. I think I can... If I can make it clear, show me a 30-foot wall and I'll bring a 31-foot ladder. Give me a break. We want to spend our money on nonsense like that. And I'll follow with this. Who's going to do this cleanup? The white people? I think we should open our borders and bring the Mexicans up. We got a lot of work for them. Cleaning up Houston, cleaning up Florida. We had a big storm in Minnesota by my golf course. I found it interesting. Hail, so a lot of homes needed to be re-roofed. All of a sudden, I'm hearing this Mexican music every day. Because as I looked out at the roofers, they were all Mexican. So think of that, people. When you want to stop these immigrants from coming to our country, who's going to do that work? You? Think about it. These are hard-working people. We want them. We don't want to turn them. And let's remember something. Unless you're native United Statesian, we're all immigrants, aren't we? How quick we forget. And if they want to put this wall up, I'll tell you what then they need to do. Take down the Statue of Liberty. Take it down. Take it down. Why have a statue that's meaningless? That statue says, send us your poor. Send us your this, send us your that. Whoa, did you see the latest? Oh, no, we only want college educated. You got to have a job. You got to be, on the up of the up. So what do we need with the Statue of Liberty anymore? The whole statue's bullshit now, if you want to look at it. Excuse my French. Anyway, though, so when I was finished with the Mongols, naturally I got into the business that you probably almost remember me for, the world of pro wrestling. Many people ask me, how did you get in pro wrestling? And I give them a quick answer. I couldn't sing or dance. No, actually, I got into it because I had designs. I was a 23-year-old freshman in junior college, and I thought I might try football. And I was on the GI Bill, so I really didn't have to name a major, or I could do what I wanted on the GI Bill, take any classes to see what interests me. And believe it or not, I got into theater. I actually did Aristophanes' The Birds, a Greek comedy, and in college. But it was there that the transition of wrestling came in. I was in the weight room. They were all wrestling fans. So was I. There was a guy named Superstar Billy Graham then, who was my hero in the world of pro wrestling. And so I realized wrestling combined both athleticism and theater. Both, two things I liked. And not only that, you didn't have to wear a helmet. They could recognize you. You could be creative. You didn't have to have the same jersey with just your name on the back, you know. And so I ventured out into the world of pro wrestling and had a 15-year career. I was on the ground floor when we went from 26 territories throughout the United States to basically one when Vince McMahon took over the world of wrestling. And that led me to the Hollywood career, Predator, Running Man, and doing a few films like that. I've had a multiple of jobs. I'm kind of a Renaissance man. After about 3 to 4 years, I get bored, and it's time to move on and do something new. That's not for everybody, because it can be terrifying if when you leave one job and venture into a new one. You don't know if you'll be successful. I like to refer, I'm very much like Yogi Berra. Remember Yogi when he said, when you come to a Y in the road, take it? That's kind of the way I've lived life. When I come to a Y in the road, I take it. I'm not sure which Y, but once I'm on that and I've taken that turn, I continue on it till I'm successful with it, hopefully. And so, and I didn't want to get, I'm 66 now, and I didn't want to 10, 15 years from now, if I'm fortunate to be here, to have to say woulda, coulda, shoulda. I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to experience everything I can. So I got led into politics. How did that start? It started in a fight for a wetland in our neighborhood in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Our city council wanted to give us concrete curb, gutter, and storm sewer. We didn't need it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's how I work. And but they forced it upon us. I got involved up there, and I looked at the 25-year incumbent one day, and I said, "You're going to make me run against you, aren't you?" His buddy on the council burst out laughing and said, "You couldn't win." Guess who walked out of that council meeting that night knowing he was running? Well, I ended up winning, and I'll leave it to you since this is political, and we're going to have governors up here, potential governors, possibly. I won 67% to 33 against a 25-year incumbent and won all 21 precincts. I believe they call that a major landslide when you win that big. And here's the thing that really got me. During the course of that mayoral campaign in 1990, it was nonpartisan, no parties, right? It's local level, no parties. Yet the Democrat and Republican leadership of Minnesota co-signed letters, sent them to every member in this, every person in the city of Brooklyn Park, telling them to vote for the 25-year incumbent, and called me the most dangerous man in the city. That's the label they gave me. Well, I didn't get offended because I thought for a moment I might be the most dangerous man in the city. I mean, after all, I'm a two-tour Vietnam veteran Navy SEAL. That makes me pretty tough, I think. And I also wrestled for 15 years. I might have been the most dangerous man in the city. I don't know. But I ended up running, winning, served one term because I am not a politician. I refer to myself as a statesman. Here's the difference. A politician makes it their career. A statesman serves and then goes back to what he or she used to do. I would rather have more statesmen than politicians, personally. I don't like it when people make careers out of getting elected. And so I served my term as mayor. Then I went into the talk radio realm. And I was actually doing sports talk 4 years later when, if you'll recall the 90s, economy was robust. I mean, everybody was making money in the 90s. Inflation was under 1%. The money's rolling in, right? Well, in the state of Minnesota, We ended up, I think, with a $2 billion something surplus. More money than they accounted for, you know, or budgeted for. I was doing radio then, and I thought, well, they've got all this excess money. What will they do with it? It should be given back, shouldn't it? If in the private sector, if you're overcharged by a company and you show them that they've overcharged you, they give you that difference back, don't they, in the private sector? Well, unfortunately, it don't work that way in the public sector always. They took the money and spent it, like kids in a candy store. Ooh, they had a couple extra $1 billion. And what you don't realize is generally when they spend it, it will come around again and you'll have to fund it again later when the economy maybe ain't so good. You're going to be stuck funding what they've spent the extra $2 billion on. They should live within their budget. So I was on radio and I just made the statement, when I talked about that money should have been given back to us, all I did was say, you know, maybe I ought to run for governor. Oh boy. It exploded. It then was I had to do it because I had put myself in a corner by just saying that. So lo and behold, I ran, and I'll never forget when I announced my candidacy on the steps of the Capitol, I think in January, February, it was cold. The first question I was asked was, because it was just me when I announced it, the first question the mainstream media asked me was, where's your family? Because you know how they always do those poses. They bring out the wife and the kids, and they got to portray themselves as the ultimate family person, you know, da-da-da-da-da, family values. I looked at the press and said, my family has nothing to do with this. This is the business of running the state of Minnesota. What does my family have to do with that? Nothing. So, I was laughed off. They thought it was a lark. They didn't think nothing, da-da-da-da-da. I went through all the early debates, this and that. It finally got to the primary, and I got it down to Hubert H. Skip Humphrey III, the famous Hubert Humphrey's son, Democrat, and St. Paul Mayor Norm Coleman, later to become a senator. Those were my opponents. That's who I wanted. I wanted the two big boys. I wanted the two big boys. If you're going to beat them, beat the best, you know. And nobody thought I had a chance. And here's a story I love to tell you. My dad was, I come from a family, my mother and father were both World War II veterans. Not many people can say their mom was. My mom was a nurse in North Africa prior to Normandy, because North Africa was fought before Normandy, and that's where my mom was. My dad had 6 bronze battle stars. North Africa, Normandy, Battle of the Bulge, Remagen Bridge, Anzio, and Berlin, and lived. Well, when my dad got to Berlin, he never talked about the war much, but he did tell me about the love affair they had with the Russians when we all arrived there. Our allies, the Russians. Let me repeat that again. Our allies, the Russians. And yet, before that war was even over, they became our enemy to this day today. Why? Why? Why do you think that happened? That was in my brain my entire adult life. I wanted to know why this happened. How could they be our ally defeating the Nazis, and before the last smoke had cleared, they became our enemy? Then there was a book I read on Allen Dulles, and that explained it all to me clearly. It comes down to Wall Street. Wall Street controlled us then like they control us now. And does Wall Street fear the most? Anything social. Socialism. That is the biggest fear Wall Street has. They would rather get in bed with Nazis and fascists than they would a socialist. And because Russia happened to have a socialistic government different than ours, they automatically became our enemy because of Wall Street. That's where Allen Dulles came from, Wall Street. So it shows how long Wall Street has been controlling our country. And these Bitcoins and all this stuff I've learned can be the way around Wall Street. Around Wall Street. That's why I have a great interest in it and all that. So anyway, continuing on, that became something I wanted to know about. Why did Russia become our enemy? And like today, now they're saying Russia interfered in our election. Really? Did you elect the president? Any of you? None of you did. Why? We have a system called the Electoral College. You're irrelevant. It's how the Electoral College votes, not you. So unless Russia got to the Electoral College, how could they have possibly interfered in our elections? And they're saying they took out ads on the internet? Are you kidding me? After looking at the corporate ads I looked at that came out of our country that makes every opponent look like they belong in prison? You ever watch those ads, them distasteful, awful things? And they're going to blame that Russia's ads were worse? I doubt it. No, this is what you got here. You got ineptness by the Democrats. They didn't run anything good. They're killing the messenger, not the message. The thing that should be focused on is the message. What happened with those emails? It showed the Democratic primary was fixed. Bernie didn't have a chance. It was fixed. Shouldn't that be the story? And if indeed Russia exposed this, shouldn't we be thanking them? And saying, thank you, Russia, for showing that our election was rigged so that we can hopefully fix it before the next one. I'm tired of them blaming Russia. They want to start the Cold War again, and the Democrats are the worst offenders on this, of starting it all up again. 2 minutes, I go till I'm ready. Nobody tells me when to shut up. Anyway, so I'll regress a little. I did win governor, and as your governor candidates up here are going to find out, I'm going to be a hard guy to deal with them. And here's the fact why. Going back to my father again for a moment, let's regress back to him. He only had an 8th grade education. But I found, he died in 91, and I found today he gets smarter every day. Every day that goes by in my life, my dad gets smarter. And he's been gone for a long time. But my dad said to me one day, he said, all politicians are crooks. And I, of course, was in high school at the time, and I said, come on, Dad, you can't make a blanket statement like that. They can't all be crooks. Certainly some could be. No, he goes, they're all crooks. You want to know why? I said, why? And in his simplistic form, he looks at me and says, because they spend $1 million for a job that only pays $100,000. Think about that a moment. In the private sector, would you ever spend more money than what you're going to make to get the job? No. People would look at you and say, you're insane. You're going to spend this much amount of money to get a job that's only going to pay you this much, and you're going to lose money trying to get this job, but yet our political arena, that's what it is. Spend millions for a job that only pays $100,000. Well, here's where I got your opponents, and here's where I got them all. When I ran for governor, I could look up to my dad, even though he was gone, and I could say, Dad, your son's not a crook, because I made more money being governor those 4 years than what I spent to get it. I only raised $300,000 to become governor of Minnesota. I was paid $120,000 a year, so if my Roosevelt High School math is correct, that means I made $480,000 and only spent $300 to get it. I don't think there's another elected official in the last 100 years that can make that statement. I might be wrong, but I don't think so. And so because I never met with a lobby, this allowed me, when I got in office, I went 4 years and never met with a lobbyist. I shut the door on them. I told my staff, I don't need to meet with lobbyists. They didn't elect me. So what do I need to talk to them about? Nothing. Tell them they're banned. They don't come in my office. Yep. I'll finish. So on that note, they tell me that the potential governors have arrived. So thank you very much for hearing my story. Since then, I've had Conspiracy Theory, the TV show, which a lot of people loved, but boy, I got read off on the floor of Congress for that one. I was going places they didn't want me going. And since then, of course, I've had the horrible lawsuit with the American sniper who lied and said that he beat me up in a bar. Right. You know, well, it didn't happen, but I will tell you this, it destroyed my career. I have not been able to get a job since that story broke. Why? Because the fake media ran with it for over a year and destroyed me before I had my chance in court. I won in front of a jury. I won in front of a federal judge. And I will give Trump credit here. It all got overturned in the appeals. They broke 2 of their rules to overturn my verdict. So yes, our courts are fixed, but they're fixed at the appeal level. There's where they're in the ivory tower. They're in there for life. They answer to nobody. So I have to retry the case again. Have to go back and do it at another time. I don't mind. Now I'll prove twice he was a liar. And then everyone will know for sure. But so why am I where I'm at now? The only job I could get was first an internet show called Off the Grid, where my boss was Carlos Slim from Mexico, and now Russian TV saw that show, picked it up, and I now work for the infamous Russian TV, and I'll finish with this, who have given me my free speech. Yes. Mainstream media doesn't let me talk for... Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. All right, thank you. Excellent. Jesse, good to have you back. Welcome. All right, so Jesse, I'll turn it over to you for that one.
They got to face a former governor now.
Yeah, there we go. Jesse, your mic is live. You're on.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm on. What am I supposed to do now? I thought they're coming in here. Okay. Anyway, they're on. So anyway, though, for me, I don't know what's in my future right now. I'm happily working for Russian television. And I'll shamelessly plug, it's called The World According to Jesse. And it's on 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. So I'm assuming 5:30 here, Mountain, every Friday night on RT America. And you will hear things that you won't hear on mainstream television, rest assured of that, because we'll cover subjects they don't want to talk about. Do what? To the outside. Oh, okay, sure.
We're thrilled to have Christina Tobin coming in from Free and Equal Elections, and Eric Voorhees, CEO and founder of Shapeshift. So yeah, Mr. Gator, Luke Gator, if you want to come on up, thank you very much for coming and being a part of this. Thank you. Eric Underwood. I really appreciate and been enjoying talking with him over the last few months. I'm glad he's here to participate. Thank you. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Christina to help moderate, and I guess we're very interested to see what happens.
Wonderful. Thank you. Here we are. I'm Christina Tobin. I'm the founder of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation as a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to broaden electoral choices through education and direct positive action like this Colorado gubernatorial debate we're having here today at Aspen Institute, co-hosted by Free and Equal Elections and Nexus Earth. So briefly, Colorado is at the forefront for change, innovation, evolving technology, sustaining, and so many beautiful grants have been implemented to help this, the state grow. And I'm excited to learn so much about blockchain technology, voting as well, and all the different ideas that our moderators bring to the table. Let me briefly introduce our moderators, and then most importantly, our candidates that are here today. Eric Voorhees, welcome him to our debate. I'd like to briefly say hello, just 20 seconds.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Eric Voorhees. I'm the founder and CEO of Shapeshift, which is a digital asset exchange. And I have been a Colorado resident almost all of my life. And looking forward to speaking with both of you guys today.
Wonderful. Welcome. And Governor Jesse the Body Ventura, welcome as our co-moderator for the debate. I think he's already briefly introduced himself, right? And so as we get started here with our candidates, I wanted to say, of course, we have Mr. Lou Gator III, Colorado gubernatorial candidate. Let's welcome him to our debate. And then Mr. Eric Underwood as well. Please, welcome. Democratic, Republican, doesn't really matter. They'll let you know during their introduction. So it's so wonderful to have both of you here today. I see you both truly as individuals, and you really set yourself apart from all the other candidates, being here for the people and really being interested in learning more and also educating our audience about blockchain technology. I wanted to start with our format for this debate. It is the same format Free and Equal Elections has used for our 2008, 12, and 16 presidential debates, as well as our 2014 Colorado gubernatorial debate we've had here in the past. It is the cumulative format, which the League of Women Voters uses. There will be a brief introduction by each of our candidates. That introduction will give each candidate opportunity to make an open statement of 2 minutes each. The order for the statements will be determined at random. They randomly determined from left to right, so we usually draw a name out of the hat, but this works perfectly. There will be 6 questions in total, maybe more. Maybe at the end we can have some audience engagement. I think that would be great. The questions have been submitted. Nexus, Earth, Free and Equal of what the people, ideas that may be of interest in blockchain voting. Each candidate will have a total of 5 or more opportunities to take an additional minute to offer a rebuttal, or in this instance, probably an extension on their answering a question, because it engages conversation back and forth. So I'll keep track of those rebuttals. It might be a little more than 5, pretty flexible. So, for instance, you could use your extra minute on the first 3 questions, or you could choose to save them for the last 3 questions. That would be pretty much it. And of course, let's not forget our 2-minute closing statement. So shall we get started with the debate? Yeah. All right, well, let's start with the gentleman here. We're going to start with the left, Lou Gator. Would you like to start with your 2-minute introduction, please?
Sure. Is mic on there? So my name is Lou Gator. I am actually a Colorado native, and I like to say I'm a homeschooling father of 9. My wife, my lovely wife is there in the front row. We've been married for 36 years, and so, yeah, sorry, Governor Ventura, my wife does come with me on some of these, but my kids do not. So I want to have a little fun. I enjoyed listening to Governor Ventura, and I've got to tell you, as a 2-term county commissioner, I think I've passed your dad's not a crook test, because I get paid about $87,000 a year, and I think I've raised a total between my 2 campaigns of around $70,000.
Very good.
So far, I'm doing good on that. On the governor campaign, I think I've raised the least amount of money of everybody running for governor. I don't know if that's good or bad yet. We'll find out. But I'm under the $100,000 comfortably. So I agree with the comment that our election should not be about money. But let's talk about my background. I've got 30 years in IT. I was a computer guy. I started in high school. And so I'm excited about blockchain. I cut my teeth in computer networking and microcomputers, so I loved the comments that were made earlier. I have been county commissioner for the last 8 years and started in 2010. I'm currently president of the State County Commissioners Organization, chairman of the Larimer County Board of County Commissioners, and just recently off of the National Board of County Commissioners, NACO, National Association of Counties, their board of directors. I've had the opportunity to run my own business and take advantage of both the business aspect of life and then working, how do you do that in government? And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be your next governor of Colorado. Take the ideas that we learn here. For me, it's technology. That's my background, so I'm excited about this conference. I know a tiny bit about blockchain. You can fit it on the point of a pin, not the head of a pin, the point of a pin. So I'm excited about learning here, and answering some of your questions. Thank you very much.
Eric Underwood.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good morning. My name is Eric Underwood. I'm running for governor of Colorado. I come from a single-parent household. My mother had 6 children, 2 sets of twins. I'm a twin myself. I have a twin sister. Her name is Erica. Let me tell you a funny story how I got my name. I'm a product of the 70s, the 70s. And my mom was infatuated with Eric Estrada. So that's how I got the name Eric. So thank you, Eric Estrada. But how I grew up has shaped me to the person who I am. Because my mom being a single parent, my father was never present in our lives. I had to be the leader, and had to be a leader at a very early age. When my mom worked 3rd shift, she worked at Hershey Chocolate in Hershey, Pennsylvania. She had to leave me in charge of my 5 other siblings, and I had to cook, I had to clean, I had to get them in line, out of line. I had to work hard, and so that helped shape me to who I am today. I went to work for a United States Senator, George Voinovich, who was a Republican from Ohio, and I worked with him for a couple of years in Washington, D.C. as a Senate staffer working on constituent issues in Washington, D.C. I helped draft legislation. I did other things within my career. But that is how I got into politics. And now I'm a Democrat running for governor, and so I have a unique perspective. But I have a bold vision for Colorado, and I want to take Colorado in the 21st century. My background is in digital technology. I created digital content and digital content mobile platforms. We partnered with AT&T back in 2012 on a $100 million deal, and we moved the company to here, to Colorado, by choice, because Colorado is a great state. Colorado is on the cutting edge of the future, and I want to take Colorado into the future. So I do understand Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and how we can apply it to our economy and how we can grow it and how we can welcome future blockchain and cryptocurrency technologies here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eric Voorhees will ask our first question. Lou, you'll be the first person to respond. It will be a 2-minute response. I meant to say that before. And then we'll take turns as we do questions back and forth. So Eric, please, first question for the debate.
Yeah. All right, so let's start with asking both of you, do you believe that individuals have a right to financial privacy, and why or why not?
So the question, as I understand it, do I believe that individuals have a right to financial privacy? The 4th Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees the security in our person's papers, places, and effects. I believe that also goes to privacy in our finances and in every area of our life. So the simple answer to your question is absolutely, and I think that's rooted in the 4th Amendment of our Constitution of the United States of America.
Yes, I do believe that everyone has a right to privacy, and definitely financial privacy, healthcare privacy, and all other privacies that are afforded to us under the rule of law of the United States. We have to make sure that our information is protected, and for instance, Equifax got hacked, and so there's half of the country that has been exposed, and we need to hold Equifax accountable for that, and also monitor people's, credit reports, and also, their vulnerabilities now that they've been exposed. So we have to do a better job of protecting people's financial information, that's private, and so we need to do a better job at that.
So, quick follow-up to that. I'm very glad that both of you seem like you support financial privacy. However, all banking and financial regulation explicitly prohibits financial privacy as it exists today. So how do you square your belief in financial privacy with all current banking regulation?
Lou?
That's a great question, and honestly, it's one I haven't thought a whole lot about. So, in our current banking practices, we believe that we have privacy, but I think you're absolutely right. It's an appearance of privacy, and I think we have that sense of it. One of the benefits that you have with cryptocurrency is if you have your own public key and your own private key, that you can set up that sense of privacy that this is my identity, but I don't necessarily need to make public who I am. Now that's the pro and the con. You know, there's both pros and cons to that. However, I think the challenge is that it does give me a little more security in my finances, in what I do. I can set up a secure set of finances. I can know what I have without making that visible necessarily to the public at large. I think our current banking practices are designed to prevent fraud, to prevent corruption. So there has to be a way to balance the two. We certainly don't want to open the door for extortion, fraud, and corruption, and yet we still need to protect individuals' rights to privacy. We need to protect our own individual security in all aspects. You know, and I mentioned the Fourth Amendment, but specifically in our finances as well.
I'd like to add that we, under the current regulations, you know, for banking, they get to sell your information to third parties, you know, for money. And so we need to put the control back into our hands for our own information. And, you know, banks should ask permission to do that. And I know it varies from state to state around the country, but here in Colorado, I believe we have a stronger consumer protection when it comes to third-party information. But we have to do more, because a lot of people are being exposed and vulnerable to third-party information that, you know, they didn't know that they've been released. And so we have to hold banks accountable for that.
Oh, good questions.
So
you want to use a rebuttal? Go ahead.
I don't know that it's a rebuttal so much as a probably an addition. The challenge that we have is our banking laws. They provide a level of protection. However, we're still looking to somebody else having that information. As I understand, some of the key parts of cryptocurrency is that information simply isn't out there in the first place, or it's much more tightly protected by the technology. We're not dependent on the laws to protect us. We're actually utilizing the technology to protect us. Because the challenge that we have is when you have a hack by Equifax or something like that, there are records that people could get into. If we can have that better tighten up, and that's some of that my understanding that we get with blockchain, some of the cryptocurrency, is it protects against those kinds of hacks, or at least it starts to get the core technology underneath to protect against those kinds of hacks. That's where I think we're going to get some real sense of privacy in our finances.
All right, well, moving on to our next question. Mr. Ventura.
I came out here more so from the cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology. I came here because of cannabis. And I have my own personal reasons, but as you both are well aware, Colorado broke the prohibition, and kudos to Colorado for having the courage to be the first state in this country to, no, I'm serious, to do the right thing, Colorado deserves that. But I took a tour yesterday of one of the major growing facilities, and I was shocked to learn that under our current tax system, they cannot deduct their expenses in producing it, so subsequently they are taxed at a rate of near 80%. That is un-American. Let me state that right here, un-American. Now, what do you plan on doing to solve this situation? Because nowhere, no other business or corporation, they can all deduct their expenses. Everyone thinks that these cannabis growers are making money hand over fist. They're making money, but it's the government that's collecting it. It is not going to their industry. They're lucky if they're getting 20% of what they're producing, and no other industry is facing that type of discrimination from our federal officials. What will you as a governor do to try to eliminate what the federal government and the Internal Revenue has done to an industry that is the fastest growing in America, with jobs and everything else, and it is all American made. It doesn't require another country.
Eric.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Good question. Eric Underwood.
Well, my Republican friend may not be so sympathetic, but I am. And I'll tell you what, I agree with Governor Ventura about that. But let me just go a step further. I have a plan on my website, ericunderwood.com, shameless plug, that is called the Colorado Rural Urban Agricultural Hemp Manufacturing Initiative. And what that initiative is, it combines farmers and manufacturers together, making sneakers out of hemp, industrialized hemp, clothing out of hemp, so many things out of hemp. We can create a new multi-billion-dollar industry. I want to untie the hands of the current cannabis industry, people that are in either growers or people that run their cannabis shops here, because you're right, they should be able to make those, deductions, because if there was any other business, they would be able to as well.
Exactly.
And so we need to untie those hands so they can be more innovative in their businesses and be able to hire more people and create more of a even flow economy where everyone can participate. Now, I have a campaign slogan called Outward Inward. Outward Inward is from rural Colorado to urban Colorado and everyone in between, to make sure that no one gets left out of our new economy. So I'm going to be pushing for industrialized hemp, and I'm going to be pursuing other innovative means that I'll talk about later in terms of healthcare and how we can streamline those marijuana tax revenue dollars into meaningful programs here in Colorado.
Lou, Gator?
So I'll go ahead and take the bull by the horns and say straight out, I was an opponent to Amendment 64, which was the recreational marijuana. However, it passed in Colorado. It passed in Larimer County. And so when the county commissioners, and I am a Larimer County commissioner, had the choice of banning recreational marijuana, we chose not to. In fact, we allowed only two, but we did allow 2 recreational marijuana grow and retail sales operations, and they work very well. I will also tell you Larimer County has no general sales tax, so we get very little tax revenue in Larimer County from marijuana sales. So I'm very sympathetic. I converse with our owners a lot. We actually have 2 very good stores and 2 very well-run marijuana businesses, recreational marijuana businesses. So I'm excited about how they've gone. To answer your specific question of why they can't deduct, it's a Class 1 felony in the federal law. And until that changes, they can't deduct the money against their IRS revenue. That's where the real change has to happen first before we can address it at the state level. And I think that change needs to happen.
That was my point. What are you guys going to do to make that change happen?
I think at this point in time, even though, as I said, I was opposed to that, this is what Colorado wanted. It's in our state constitution. Like I say, there's a time for getting advice and a time for taking orders. I work for the citizens of the state of Colorado. They told me what they wanted. Now it's my turn to go make it happen. So let's get that overturned.
Let me add something too. I'm good friends with Tommy Chong. No one knows more about cannabis than Tommy Chong. And no, this is serious for a moment. Tommy said to me there should be no distinction between medical and recreational marijuana because it is a complete medical plant to begin with, and those that smoke it for the euphoric feeling are doing it for mental health. I would rather see him using cannabis than Prozac.
Eric, Eric, please.
Let me just rebut Lou here.
This is a rebuttal, not an extension now.
And I'm going to get with Governor Ventura and what he said on his last comment. But listen, he opposed, the amendment to legalize marijuana here in the state. And he also opposed on, extending other stores and other cannabis stores in his county. They only have, as you heard, 2. Larimer County is a pretty decent-sized county here in Colorado, and we can do better. There's a lot of entrepreneurs here in this state, and we ought to do better in enriching them with the tools so they can further, our economy here in Colorado. Now, to Governor Ventura's point, I do believe that medical use, there are a lot of scientific benefits, but But I also want to make sure that for the recreation use, that it's not getting in the hands of children, and we need to do a better job at that. And actually, there are statistics here in the state that that's actually gone down, you know, from children and teens using it, which is great. So we can do more. But I am an opponent, or you know, an advocate for making sure that our economy grows in a responsible manner, because there are billions of dollars from either industrialized hemp or marijuana that we can use here in the state to fund many different things here. Because even though we have a great economy, a lot of people are getting left out behind, and we have to make sure that they come along for the ride.
Let me add one thing. If Thomas Jefferson and George Washington were alive today, they'd be doing 10 to 12 in the federal penitentiary right now. That should speak volumes.
Well, let's move on to the third question. Thank you, Jesse. You're definitely spicing up this panel. Yeah.
Finally found a difference.
This question resonates a bit. I recently listened to an interview of Eric Voorhees, actually, on the Ernest Hancock show. And wow, you know, when you have something that's new, different, maybe outside of the system, suddenly you have these states kind of, whether it's federal laws, basically going to this question here. States such as Washington and New York have gained the reputation as unfriendly places to locate cryptocurrency, blockchain-oriented companies. What can Colorado do to become a destination for these companies? And do you have any specific initiatives or incentives regarding this industry? So, Lou. Your turn.
Okay, I was going to say, I think I got to go first twice. I was going to let Eric go first if he wants.
Taking turns.
You're a very nice Republican. I appreciate that.
Did I do it? Oh yeah, Lou went first. Eric, now Lou on the third one. It's you. Go ahead.
Okay, so what can we do to become more blockchain cryptocurrency friendly? And I think it's more technology friendly in general. I loved the phrase. I'm a Colorado native. And I met my wife at Colorado State University back in I guess we met in 1978, and we got married in 1981, and I moved to Silicon Valley, worked in computers for 5 years, and then moved back to Silicon Mountain. I loved that phrase. And I think we need to recapture that and reclaim that. There are, you know, Colorado's a fantastic state. How many of you have ever lived in San Jose, California, or that Bay Area? Okay? How many of you would rather live in Colorado? Yeah, okay, me too. So it's a fantastic place to live with incredible assets, not only in our beauty, but also in our love for technology, our love for change. We need to become more technology friendly, and I think the blockchain, cryptocurrency is a great place where we can be leading edge, where we can take that challenge and say, okay, we're going to lead here. Just like in Fort Collins area, it's kind of the green university. Colorado State has taken that mantra, and we're trying to lead in renewable energy and other things. Let's take that in Colorado and say, let's be the leader in technology. Let's take that away from Silicon Valley, California. Let's move that here to Colorado. I'm really proud of what you're doing with your company here. Congratulations.
Thank you very much for your response, Eric.
One of my taglines, my campaign is solutions, not sound bites. So a lot of stuff on my platform, I talk about how we're going to do it from point A to point B. There is an initiative that I'm working on. Actually, I can't take all the credit. Actually, Todd Olson helped me. He's right here. We go back many years, and with my24hournews.com. So I have a plan to create a cryptocurrency for Colorado. And what this cryptocurrency will do is that it will link up with the cannabis industry. So we know exactly how much, you know, that we're taking in for taxes, because a lot of the tax dollars are underreported here in the state. And so as I know what cryptocurrency does, it's like basically a ledger, like a sales spreadsheet, you know, in a way. And we can link up with the cannabis industry here because they have a banking problem because of the federal regulations. So how I propose to solve this problem is to create this cryptocurrency here in the state where the cannabis industry can basically not have a cash problem, you know, at the dispensaries and so on and so forth. But that cryptocurrency can also help fund the shortfalls of healthcare here in the state. And it will be an open and transparent way of dealing with blockchain technology where we can get into medical records and so on and so forth. So I want to push this idea out here where, and we know that cryptocurrency can grow in value. And we can tie the cryptocurrency to not only American dollars here, but also with the cannabis industry, and it's growing continuously here in the state. We can be able to attack other issues here in Colorado, like healthcare, for example, and our education, our schools, and so on and so forth. So I do actually have a plan that I've been thinking about how we can move our state forward using blockchain and crypto technology. And naturally, since I come from the tech world, you know, these are some of the things that the 21st century leader has to think about and embrace these ideas because, you know, old think is old think, but we need someone that's for now and for the future.
Wow. Thank you. Eric,
I got a question. Go ahead.
we'll go in order. We'll get you next.
If mine's different, I'll go after you.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like both of you are advocates of cryptocurrency, which is very exciting. However, to the extent that cryptocurrency is used as a money, by definition, that usage will start to displace the US dollar. Isn't that un-American?
Eric.
Well, there are plenty of things that are un-American, but you know we have to brace this technology. Blockchain is what the future is, right? And there's so much things we can do with blockchain and cryptocurrency. Like for instance, like with blockchain, we can revamp our education system. A professor from CU told me that there's like 5,000 courses that you can assert into a curriculum. And if you can do, if the blockchain technology will work, you know, in terms of education and linking up what you read or linking up with what you participated in an online discussion or maybe a course at a university here and there, that blockchain that can follow you and it can accumulate maybe into college credits or whatever. So there are new and innovative things that we can do with blockchain that I've been thinking about on how we can, you know, revolutionize how we do with education and certainly the cannabis industry. But
why is it un-American or not? I want that question answered.
I don't think it is un-American because eventually things settle, right? When things are new, you know, it kind of fluctuates, and it could disrupt the dollar to a certain point, but I don't think that it's going to knock out the dollar. The dollar is always going to be a dollar, and it will rebound. If you remember, the euro was higher than a dollar, and our dollar wasn't as strong as the yen, you know, at certain points, you know, throughout history. So things will settle down, and the dollar will remain strong.
I'd like to piggyback on that for a moment.
Should we let Lou respond and then piggyback?
Oh.
Let's do that. Okay.
Oh, that's all right. So you saw me dig in my wallet here for a second, and you were asking un-American. And boy, you know, every now and again you get asked a question, you look at something, and you think, do I really want to step off this ledge here? So yeah, what the heck? It's a Saturday morning. It's early. We're talking about cryptocurrency. I've got the former governor of Minnesota here, and if nothing else, I can say I was wrestling with Jesse Ventura, and that's how I broke my collarbone. So, you know, the $20 bill I pulled out says this note is redeemable for all debts, public and private. When is the last time you tried to use a dollar bill or $100 bill to pay your taxes? Did you know you can't? So what is un-American when we can't even use our own currency to pay that?
Very good. That is very good. Yeah,
so I think when we look at cryptocurrency, I think it has every bit a point as being American as anything else because, and you have to go back to the 60s, where a $100 bill said this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and is redeemable in lawful monies of the United States of America. What makes that $20 bill worthwhile is that you reasonably believe you can go down to City Market and get a couple of steaks for it. At some point in time, cryptocurrency is going to be able to do the same thing, and I think it's going to be just as American and just as strong.
piggybacking on that for a moment, the Federal Reserve isn't going to take this lying down. And they're going to come at you hard, in my opinion. As governor, how will you fend them off? I mean, they are probably one of the most, if not they might be the most powerful entity in this entire nation. How do you fight them off if they come down federally onto Colorado because you're going to blockchain technology and cryptocurrency? And if they tell you we're going to stop it?
Great question. Lou.
That is a great question, and honestly, it's one I hadn't really given any thought to. What are our opportunities? What are our options? I think we do as much as we can, and you try to go forward. I think we take advantage of the fact that we are an independent state. I was having, well, I think we actually both had a chance to chat with the same gentleman at breakfast this morning, and we were talking about back in the early 70s, Colorado, and I'm a Colorado native, Colorado did something that was, we're still paying for it, to be honest with you, but we voted down as a state taking the United States, or the World Olympics, the Winter Olympics. And we were all set, and we said we're not going to do that. So Colorado is known for being a bit independent and going their own way. You know, like we said, we're the first state to legalize recreational or medical marijuana as far as that goes. So I think this just becomes yet another area. And there may be, well, there's no question, there will be a price to pay. I think Coloradans are a tenacious breed, and I think we're just going to need to stay the course, realize this is what's best for us, and not let somebody outside tell us what's best for us. We can have both, but I think we have to have the courage to say we're going to take a new step in this brave new world.
I'd just like to add that I believe in states' rights. And so, you know, and to piggyback on what Lou said, you know, we do what's best for Coloradans. And that's very, very important. And we'll take, and to answer Governor Ventura's question, you know, we'll go to court if necessary, you know, to fight for our right, you know, to govern our state how we see fit, you know, with the people's approval. So, you know, I would be wouldn't be hesitant taking them to court.
Thank you. Well, I've got one more question, and maybe these gentlemen too could be a final round of questions, unless you have a few more, and we can open it up to the audience. Would be great. We are on the sixth question. And this would be something with Free and Equal Elections Foundation. We are holding our 4th annual Electoral Reform Symposium this November 18th at Infinity Park, Glendale, Colorado, and invite Glendale Infinity November 18th, excuse me. And I would invite both of you gentlemen to be there, and I'll follow up on that for sure. So my question is, in our past symposium, I've learned from the Secretary of State, Comptroller, the President of League of Women Voters will keynote address of Colorado, our symposium this year, the voting machines. So this is kind of an open-ended question. You know, we have the paper ballots. Do you support blockchain voting? I've learned with the voting machines that they were owned by Diebold, have since been sold to Dominion. Guess who controls those voting machines? The powers that be. So I wanted to get your feel on the voting machines, paper ballots versus blockchain. Do you support blockchain voting? That's something that's been on my mind. I'd be curious to hear your viewpoint. Eric.
Well, I'm gonna show my age. I like the phrase trust but verify. And so with that, what I mean by that is we can do something with blockchain, but I would like to see a paper trail with that blockchain voting method. Because if something happens, if by instance we get hacked or something like that, at least we have a paper trail of what was actually voted at the voting booth. But here in Colorado, we vote uniquely because it's a mail-in ballot. So we don't necessarily go to the polls like, you know, other states around the country. So it's a little bit more secure in that instance in terms of the ballot goes to your house. You can either drop it off at the county elections commission, or you can just mail it in, you know, that way. So, and it also encourages, that's why we have a higher turnout than a lot of other states, because we make it easy for people to vote here in the state of Colorado. So,
thank you for your answer.
That was a great answer, and I like the idea. And with the mail-in ballots, of course, we have that paper trail, and in fact, those ballots are kept. And if we need to do a recount, they can go back and get that recount. The thing I like about the blockchain technology, as I understand it, and again, I'm I'm definitely displaying my ignorance here, but is the trackability. And in some ways, I think it's perhaps more trackable than a paper ballot would be, and maybe more secure because of the way the encryption works. It might actually be harder to falsify that electronic record than to have 100 extra paper ballots show up out of nowhere.
Thank you for your answers. We do have about, I think this ends at 10:45. I was told to be about 15, 18 more minutes. So if you have another question, gentlemen, and then we could open up to a few questions, hopefully, to the audience, please.
Okay. So in his opening remarks, Mr. Ventura here said that the Statue of Liberty is bullshit. Given that the U.S. imprisons more people than any other nation on earth, why is he wrong?
Wow, Lou. Lou, you get to go first on this one.
I just didn't like the way you ended that question. We are a nation of immigrants, as Governor Ventura so clearly stated. And we need to honor and be strong to that immigrant foundation. Now, I think we also need to recognize there is a distinction between those who come to our country legally, that we need to welcome them with open arms. We need to make it easy to get in. We need to, I'm not saying that means loose borders, but there needs to not be unrealistic and unreasonable restrictions to come in for those who are just trying to get a better life. You know, bring in our poor, as you said. So that I disagree with you that the Statue of Liberty is bovine excrement. Have a little fun with that.
Well,
so
we're learning that way. I'm not saying it is. I agree with the Statue of Liberty, but we're being hypocritical to that statue.
And I think that was your point, that if we do not continue to recognize that we are a nation of immigrants and welcome and embrace those immigrants, then we lose out. I'm going to pick on Morgan County. A friend of mine there is a commissioner there, and they bring in Somali immigrants and they are a huge piece of their community and a huge part of their culture. And every year they are working on how they can bring more and more people in, and they're integrating with their community, and they're taking jobs that typical Americans don't want, but they're actually taking jobs that Americans want. They're integrating with their community and the society, and they're becoming a part of it. So we need to embrace that melting pot that made us the great nation that we are. And I think we need to be mindful of those who want to come into our country to do us harm. I'm certainly not saying we need to make it easy for them, but we also need to recognize that most of the people that are here just want a better life.
I have to rebut that because, you know, Lou supported a man who wants to build a wall, okay? So, I mean, I would almost believe what he said if he hadn't supported a man like that. And so I take a little, I hear what he's saying, and, you know, but it kind of falls on deaf ears when you support a guy who's, you know, very divisive in our country right now. We need to be building bridges, not, you know, tearing them down. But I have an undocumented immigrant plan called Come Out of Shadows Program. And the Come Out of Shadows Program, or COOTS for short, is basically a plan to make undocumented immigrants, through a process, become state legal residents here in Colorado. I would have that authority as the next governor. My program, with DACA being up in the air, I want to give assurances to people, you know, that they are welcomed in this country. And a lot of these people that are here know no other country but the U.S. So we have to embrace them with open arms. My plan, COOTS, will help, you know, solve the problem, at least here in Colorado, but through a process. So they pay into a program fee and stay out of trouble for 2 years, and through that process, they will become a state legal resident. So I'm proud to have that on my platform as governor of Colorado.
I'd like to add one thing. Human beings are not illegal.
Absolutely.
We do have an extension.
Let me just mention for a moment here, because we were going to end, and we know that politicians would very vehemently disagree with theft. And stealing time from another person wouldn't be right. However, Kier Reeg is due now. Is Kier in the audience? Oh, he's there. Kier, what is your call? This is your time. It's up to you. What do you want? Sounds reasonable to me. You got 10 minutes.
Appreciate that. It's very nice. You had an extension there?
Just one comment on that. I would imagine that you don't agree with everything that Senator/Secretary Clinton proposed in her platform. Please don't assume that I agree with everything that President Trump put out.
I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton.
All right.
Very good.
Jesse, you want
Neither
to
did I.
wrap this one out? Do you want to smooth it out? Unite? Any questions? Do you have one more question, Jesse or Eric? One more question, Eric.
All right, I got one. A little
Unless
more
you want to
lighthearted.
go right to the audience. Do you want to go right to the audience, or you want to do
Let's
quick
do
questions?
this one.
Okay, quick question.
Okay,
1 minute each, maybe.
This is a fun hypothetical question. All right, if you discovered that a junior staff member at the state capitol back in 2010 had mined 100,000 bitcoins using government property, that's currently worth about $350 million today. What would you do with that money?
Okay,
I think, Eric, is it your turn to go first?
Sure. So if I discovered a junior staff member mined 100,000 bitcoins that's worth $300 million today, we keep the money and we use it to fund shortfalls in our programs. I want to make sure that Colorado has the best one of the best economies here in the country, but our schools are underfunded, and so we need to do a better job of that, which is why I'm going to get rid of Tabor once and for all here in the state, which has held our state back. And so I would basically fund programs that are shortfalls within the state that are meaningful, that will help everyday Coloradans.
Thank you.
What can we buy with that Bitcoin?
You can buy 350 million Federal Reserve notes with it.
But I guess my point. I'd rather not have the Federal Reserve notes. I guess my point is, are there vendors in Colorado who will take that Bitcoin? Can we use it on our roads, for example? Or can we use it in human services? Are there areas that we can use that Bitcoin, and let's start to make that jump into cryptocurrency, and let's be a user of it?
All right. Well, I want to keep a promise here and just have maybe like 1 or 2 questions from the audience. We have about 6 minutes left, and wrap this up. I've seen that hand right to a question. If you can come up to the mic, gentlemen, that works for you? Yep. All right.
So I want to bring this back to cannabis because we're in Colorado, and many years ago I went out and sequenced the cannabis genome and put it public for everyone because I think everyone should have access to this. It has a very big impact on cancer care. 1 in 3 people are going to get cancer. We have a problem in licensing cannabis right now in that we're handing out limited number of licenses to a select group of people. This creates artificial scarcity, expensive licensing. Only rich people can get in. What are you going to do to lift these licenses so that we can have a more even playing field and everyone can get into this exciting marketplace?
Great question. It's all about audience participation. Lou, you'll go first on this one.
So, and Eric, we are going to disagree on this one, but you're going to have fun with it. And so I wouldn't lift them. And I'll just say that straight out. And I will also say that I am a cancer survivor. So I believe that, and I have friends who have used cannabis to help alleviate their cancer, the pain. So I absolutely understand the benefits of cannabis. It's not a question of that. For me, until we understand how to get the abuses under better control, I would not be open to loosening the reins up. I think we need to get better control. I think the Marijuana Enforcement Division is working on that. Every year the state is reevaluating our rules and what we can do to make it better. But I think that's a process that has to take time.
Thank you.
I would lift it. Straight up, I would lift it. Okay? Look,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I would lift it.
Lift
I
it.
would lift it. Look, to your point, we want to make sure that no one's getting left out of this. And that's what the whole theme of my campaign is, outward and inward, to make sure no one's getting left behind. I want to take everyone along for the ride in this great state economy here in Colorado.
Thank you. I apologize. We do have 2-minute closing statements. So I don't think we're going to have enough time to have another audience question, hesitantly. So we'll finish our 2-minute closing statements from our gentlemen on the stage. So who would go first on this? Since Lou went first at the beginning, we'll go ahead and have you go first at the end as well.
Okay, great. So I want to thank you very much first for the opportunity, for the forum. Thank you for the tough questions. I knew when cannabis came up, I'm like, oh boy, that's going to be fun. So However, I think it's important, as we brought up, this is Colorado, this is a huge issue in our state. I think where we're going with cryptocurrency, with blockchain, I think that is fantastic. I think we have a huge opportunity to be in the forefront of something exciting. I am running for governor. I have 30 years on the IT background, 30 years in computers, and I was in computer networking, I like to say, before Al Gore invented the internet. So I get technology and I understand the infancy and the growth and the growing pains of it. I am excited to take the experience I have as a county commissioner getting things done. For me, it's not just about plans. I can actually sit down with you and point out what I've actually done to make government more efficient, more operational, work on less money, and get things done. It's not a plan, it's actually a track record. I'm Lou Gator. You can check me out on my website. It's Lou, L-E-W, the number 4U.com. It actually links to lougator.com, but if you remember, lou4u.com. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Eric.
I want to thank the panel. Thank you, Governor Ventura. I actually kind of fanboyed out watching you, Hulk Hogan, and Junkyard Dog, and the rest of the company back in the day. Thank you. I appreciate it being here. Listen, I'm not running for governor to add to my resume on trying to get the next job from elected office to the next elective office. Even though I have great government experience, I'm a visionary. Just the same way I built my company, my24hournews.com Inc. I'm a visionary. And from the same humble beginnings that I grew up in, that is the mentality that I have for the vision of Colorado. As a poor kid coming out of a housing project, I dreamt big. And I'm going to dream big for Colorado because we need you. And thank you for participating in this conference. But we need your ideas and we need your support. I want to work with the next innovators so we can move our state forward. So I appreciate your consideration. I appreciate your for your vote. And let's do it together because this is a team effort. And I want to work with everyone here to move our great state forward and beyond. Thank you.
And finally, a brief 30 seconds closing from our co-moderators, Eric Voorhees. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you both for joining us today. Just a quick closing remark. If either of you become governor, one of the biggest battles that you may have to face is over questions of financial privacy and sovereignty of individuals over their money and over their commercial transactions, and indeed over the very currency unit that citizens of this country choose to use. So that's a deep issue, and I would request simply that you keep an open mind to it, and if you'd ever like to talk about these issues, my door is always open.
Thank you. Jesse.
I'd just like to say thank you. It was an honor to participate. I'm usually on, all my memories were in your chair. So it was fun for me to sit in this chair, and good luck to both of you. As I said before, I love the state of Colorado now because this is a state of courage. And whenever I come here, I get a sense of freedom that I don't feel in a lot of other places around this country. Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck.
And finally, whether you agree with maybe most of blockchain viewpoints here with these candidates and so on, I want to tell you some of the most difficult part in putting on a debate is getting candidates to attend. I know. I've done it in 08, 12, 16 on a presidential level. So we initially had 10 candidates confirmed, 5 candidates confirmed. These are the men who have set themselves apart, I feel, from the rest of the Colorado gubernatorial candidates here in Colorado. So I want to thank you so much. Opening the debates is so important and having that engagement and conversation across the spectrum. So again, thank you for being a part of this just accountable, beautiful cause and expressing your viewpoints. I look forward to seeing you in November. And thank you for the audience and Nexus Earth for making this a reality. And really appreciate John Hazel, the whole team here for making this happen. Thanks again, Terry, everyone.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I love seeing democracy in action and getting people to think about different ideas. And now we've got some wonderful new options with the new developments that are happening with Nexus, 3D dimensional. This blows my mind away. And to have a better explanation and get some Q&A on this, we've got Kier Rieg helping us on this. Kier, come on up, sir. We're looking forward to hearing what you got to say.
We've got some slides coming in a second here. Everybody having fun at the conference? Kind of interesting, huh? Eclectic group of speakers. So I'm Kier Rieg. I'm here to talk to you today about reinventing monetary systems, and this is something we can do with cryptocurrency. If you think about it, money is a technology like any other. I mean, we have these dollar bills. There's technology embedded in that. We've been developing this technology for centuries and centuries, and it touches literally everybody on the planet. It's something that's so core to everything you do economically, and it's also something that basically most people don't think about. You don't think about how your money is. You just have this assumption that, oh, well, money, it's worth something, and I go and I have a job and I earn it and then I use it to buy stuff. But you don't think about how it's made. Crypto has brought this to light, how it's made, because it's bringing a discussion about the Federal Reserve, fractional reserve banking, and this sort of thing. So I put a definition of what is money here, and money is basically anything, be it an object or idea, that is generally accepted as payments for goods and services and repayments of debts. It's a medium of exchange, a means with which to transfer value, something that can be used to store value, and these definitions go on and on. So when you think about money, you realize at its base level, it's really an energy transference mechanism. So this provides you a new way to think about it. And to give you a little background on myself, I was a hedge fund trader for 9 years, and you know, in order to trade equities well, you really have to understand the bond markets and how money works as well, because the flows all work together. It's an interconnected system. So yeah, it's an energy transference mechanism. So I'm going to set the stage here with just some interesting numbers that maybe you know, maybe you don't. In 2016, global debt totaled in at $215 trillion. This is an estimate. These numbers are not really easy to find. If we were on blockchain, we would know exactly how much money there is at all times. The number is most likely very much higher than that right now. And interestingly, recently the Bank of International Settlements came out and said, oh, the banks have been underreporting debt by $13 trillion because of how we account for our money. In 2016, the total market capitalization, meaning the value of all the stocks in the world, is approximately $70 trillion. The market cap of gold, $7.18 trillion. So Bitcoin's market cap, which is once again how much all of the Bitcoin in the world is worth, is about $70 billion right now, maybe $50, $70 billion. And if you took the Bitcoin market cap and brought it up to the same as gold, it would be about $425,000 per Bitcoin. So this is what, you know, traders and speculators are betting on right now. And in my opinion, blockchain technology has so many advantages that it's got it's very likely that it will become some sort of money system in the future. And if you think about an adoption curve that's like an S curve, right? that's basically what the price curve will do over time. So you'll have a lot of oscillations up and down, but it will follow that S curve over time. So as adoption increases, you could imagine the whole market for cryptocurrencies being worth trillions and trillions of dollars. So that's what the investors and speculators are really betting on right now, and they're fulfilling an important role because they're taking risk and they see something in this technology, and for taking that risk, there's a lot of uncertainty with regard to how the governments are going to react to this. You heard some of that from the candidates, and if they take that risk, they might make a lot of money. Okay, so money as debt versus money as equity. Currently, we live in a debt-based monetary system. There's always this much debt and this much equity. You can never settle all the debts at time zero because it's all extrapolated from the future and brought into the now. So all new dollars that come into existence as debt. The only way a new dollar is made is it's loaned into existence. It starts at the core with the Federal Reserve loaning it out to the member banks, and then the member banks loan it out to the people. So the banks are the gatekeepers of the money. They are the ones who decide how much of it goes out through their lending, essentially. In the current incarnation of cryptocurrencies, new coins are minted into existence as equity. So when a miner mines new coins, it's like you're going up into the hills and mining gold. You pick up the gold, you don't owe the gold back to somebody, okay? So if you're using these types of systems, you can't have a debt crisis or a debt problem because there's nobody to owe it all back to. If you were totally on these types of systems, you would have this much equity in the system and only the possibility of this much debt, period. And future incarnations of cryptocurrencies, we can create new types of minting channels. So when you hear about mining, that's how the currency is emitted. That's how the supply of cryptocurrencies increases. We can utilize this to facilitate social good. For example, with Nexus, we want to use this to facilitate a decentralized internet, which is a good thing for many, many reasons, and that I can't go into in this speech. So fractional reserve is a banking system in which only a fraction of bank deposits are backed by actual cash on hand and are available for withdrawal. This is done to expand the economy by freeing up capital that can be loaned out to other parties. So as I said, money is simply a technology, and when we were on the gold standard, you know, the ideas and the products in the economy were increasing faster than gold could be mined, right? So fractional reserve banking was born from a true need that existed in the market, which was the need for more money so that people could exchange it. And then a central bank is a central authority. It's monopolized and often nationalized institution, given privileged control over the production and distribution of money and credit. In modern economies, the central bank is usually responsible for the formulation of monetary policy and the regulation of the member banks. This is how our system works currently. And I'm stuck on this slide. Okay. Yeah, so there we go. One sec. There we go. Yep. So this just kind of goes through a little bit of the history. I mean, this fractional reserve stuff has been building up over many, many years. I mean, banking was around at the time of Alexander the Great. It was seen in India, ancient Egypt, and then we come into the Renaissance. These are some of the banks of note here, and the point of me putting these three banks up is to basically tell you that when these three banks were started, they were built on sound money principles because they understood that overextension of credit ultimately leads to collapse of the currency. So, you know, they come in, and this is the cycle we've been on. You say, hey, we're only going to use service fees with this bank, and therefore your money will be safe. Well, over time, they say, oh, well, we need more money out there, so they start issuing credit, and then when the credit gets too loose, it ultimately collapses the bank and destroys value for everyone. So some of the challenges with fractional reserve banking: inflation, hyperinflation, centralized control, advantage of it. Some believe that fractional reserve banking actually violates property rights because it leads to two parties owning the same property simultaneously. It's kind of a gray area. It's very weird to think about. Here we go. So yeah, in the last century, believe it or not, there's been 57 episodes of hyperinflation. There's 56, and then I just remembered Venezuela, it's happening right now. Hyperinflation is always a monetary phenomenon. It happens when the central bank prints way too much money way too quickly. It erodes value from everybody in the whole economy, and it can destroy an economy. And these are a couple of the examples of it. Zimbabwe prices doubled every 25 hours, so it's hard to, keep your prices stable in your business if you got something like this going on. Here's a couple more examples. And this is a list of some of the examples of hyperinflation in the last century. This is from the Cato Institute. They have a definition for this. You can look it up, study it at your leisure. This is more of them. Imagine how many people that affects. So fractional reserve, it's based on central banks and the expansion of money supply through the use of credit. This is because the economy, we need it. We need more money. The economy is growing fast. You have population growth. So once again, this is an advance in money technology, but it's not a perfect advancement. Cryptocurrency is based on proof of work. You have to do some work. You have to mine the coin into existence. You have to facilitate transactions on the network and secure the network in order to receive the new money supply that's created. So we keep repeating these same patterns with fractional reserve because basically, we need more money in the economy, and then we extend credit, and we extend credit, extend credit, and to the point where the interest soaks up a lot of the actual output of the economy, and then it crashes, or in some cases they hyperinflate it due to wars and other things like that. So this creates problems in society, and I say in the most positive light, these institutions are filling market demand for the capability to transfer money between one another. Without new money, the gears of society grind to a halt. That's a bad thing. That's why the gold standard ultimately didn't work, and why this technology came to be. But in the negative light, it could be seen as these institutions are using the power of the printing press to facilitate wars or other actions that the masses ultimately do not want. So, it's a technology. It can be used for good. It can be used for evil. So yeah, it's very important. It touches every single thing we do. So the structure of our money systems, it's paramount to the well-being of society as a whole. And it's an issue we need to address. I saw the financial crisis. I saw these challenges. I learned about cryptocurrency, and I'm thinking, wow, this is a real solution. This is something that can really change a lot of people's lives, whether they know it or not. And, to be honest, if we go down this road and you switch over to cryptocurrencies, from the most user standpoint, it's kind of like landline phones dying and cell phones coming in. It's like, oh, I just use a cell phone now. Okay, well, that's easy. Well, yeah, but they didn't realize that one industry was totally, being destroyed and another one was growing. So, when you think about switching over money systems, it can be a scary thought, right? Like, oh my gosh, what would happen? But there's examples of dynamic systems, switching over without the average person even really noticing. So my epiphany is that money is just simply energy transference mechanism, and the technology needs to facilitate that. So as we move forward in our technological progress, we're moving more into the realm of ideas. We're moving from scarcity economics to abundance economics. Today you can create a piece of software like Facebook and go make $17 billion a year on people posting pictures around. It's something new, so it creates like this massive growth in the economy. And so in order to facilitate all that energy transfer, you're gonna need more units of value to transfer. One of the things that Bitcoin does is it has 8 decimal places. So they say, okay, Bitcoin, you're only gonna have 21 million Bitcoins, but it's divisible 100 million times, therefore, they just think that deflation will handle it, going forward into the future. So when you think about all this stuff, like with Nexus, there's a proof of stake system which adds a 0.5 to 3% inflation over time that goes directly to the users. It does not create new debt. It puts new money out into the economy. And I think that that's a little bit of a better system than Bitcoin, because what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to have a little bit of inflation, and then it's going to allow for deflation too with the divisibility. So it gives it like two ways to go up and down, which makes the system really resistant. So with cryptocurrencies, we can have our cake and eat it too. We don't have to have all the debt anymore. We can mint money in a new way. We can use it to facilitate social good. And the network as a whole can decide, what things they deem are relevant minting channels. So in other words, what industries we want to promote that serve a social good, and therefore we will all take the inflation, which robs a little bit of us in a sense, but also allows those industries to thrive. So, what can we do with all this stuff? I love this quote. The ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. Well, I'm crazy enough to think I can change the world. And we can do it with cryptocurrency, and that's why I'm here. So there's 2 billion people in the world who are unbanked. Well, we can bank them. All they have to, if they have a computer, if they can go to a library, once we get this network and the interfaces up and running fully, they will be able to hop on and they will be banked. There's no way they can be turned down because there is no central authority. They can go download the software just like anybody else. There's a couple of interesting projects, like Lunar is a blockchain project that's building a decentralized Wikipedia. And so basically they have a coin, and then the idea here is users go on and they put the content up, and if the content is voted higher by the network, they will in return receive these Lunar coins, and then the Lunar coins trade against Bitcoin in a free market, and whatever they're worth. So theoretically, you could have a college student there who's making a report on something, and he goes, whoa, well, I should probably just put this up on Lunar because there's nothing there yet, and now I've made some money. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, there's creating markets that provide a monetary recognition of the various forms of value we all create on the internet. When you make a post on Facebook, that's actually valuable. Facebook makes billions of dollars selling ads to companies like mine, Time, and it's based on all the users' value. Well, with decentralized systems, the user's value is going to be recognized more. You can reinvent accounting with blockchains. You can have traceable audit trails. You can have automated processes, authentication of transactions. Tracking and ownership of assets becomes much easier. The contracts can be tied directly into accounting systems. I mean, the benefits of this technology, it just goes on and on and on. It can't do everything, though, and some people, want to think that they can apply it to everything, and there's certain things that it does really well and certain things that it does not. So liquefying markets. I mean, liquefying markets, you think of it as like how fast something trades, how liquid it is. Like something that's illiquid is like a little stream, and something that's very liquid is like the Mississippi River. So we've seen great benefits from the liquefaction of debt and equity markets. It provides new financing mechanisms for all these businesses to grow and expand and create new jobs and build the society that we see around us that is awesome, in my opinion. And so we can use these to create new forms of financial instruments that are much more efficient. We can speed up transactions. We can liquefy real estate. I mean, imagine if real estate was much more liquid than it was, and you could trade it much easier if titles were on blockchain. And I talk to my buddies about this all the time, trying to find the next big application for this, actually. But you could imagine, real estate being transacted much faster. Same thing with automobiles. It has huge implications in insurance. as well as digital content. I mean, you know, the music industry really got hurt by all the illegal downloading. So peer-to-peer networks originally came in and really hurt the music industry, and nobody was ahead of the technology. We're talking to people in music, and we want to, you know, bring this back in a way that works for everybody and gets more money to the artists. It can be applied to music and other forms of digital content like video. So, you know, with more liquidity, we see higher velocity of money. Velocity of money is how fast it goes back and forth between each other. And so it's an energy transference mechanism, and as our technology is raising, our consciousness is raising, you know, the energy transmission is raising as well, and the money systems need to reflect that. And if they don't, we will see, you know, the effects. So reinventing the role of financial intermediaries developed out. So there's all kinds of opportunity in blockchain to build on top of these things, to create new businesses. It's not as cut and dry as some people portray it. Like, you're still going to have financial institutions, in my opinion, for a myriad of reasons. They're just going to operate much more efficiently, and hopefully, if we can do this right, and everybody can understand that if we get away from money as debt, we won't have all these downstream problems it creates like we saw in the financial crisis. Drudgery in the back office of financial institutions will be drastically reduced. You know, if you trade a stock today, it looks like it's instant on TD Ameritrade, but really the settlement happens T+3, so that's 3 days later. With blockchain, it'd be instantaneous. You know, there's people in the back offices of Wall Street, they spend billions of dollars making sure that when you trade a stock, it's actually going from one person to the next. And it frees up human capital to do more interesting things. Nobody wants to sit there in a back office and do the same rote thing over and over and over. We're all inherently creative beings, and I think when you talk to somebody who really likes their job, ultimately they're doing something creative no matter what the industry is. So yeah, changing the world with new financial paradigms. History shows the ability to create credit is a very powerful thing. It's been abused many times. Okay, so let's learn from our mistakes. That's why we talk about decentralized systems. If it's a decentralized system, nobody can abuse it. It's very, very, very much harder for the types of abuse we've seen to happen. Now, maybe some new forms will come up and we'll have to deal with that, but this is a step forward in the technology of money. Let's see. Yeah, and so we can make sure that the ways that this money is minted into existence serves the social good. Well, if we decide that, hey, everybody has a right to free internet, and maybe, you know, like you just put that as a minting channel in the system and make the economics work, well, now everybody has free internet, and that's pretty cool, and we all decide that it's worth it to take a little bit of inflation for everybody in order to incentivize an industry around free internet. So with cryptocurrencies, you can create a free market of money systems. I'm a big, big proponent of free markets. Like, it really, really works. It's what built what we have around us. It's awesome. I mean, Aspen is beautiful. We can go up on the gondola and ride mountain bikes down. So it's great, and we can, you know, we can utilize the same thing in money technology. You know, if Nexus creates a technology that's really good and everybody wants to come in and use that technology, then it tells you something about it. And so we'll be able to choose the best systems based on merit, and the free market decides which systems are optimal. And it doesn't have to happen overnight. It doesn't have to be a big upheaval or anything like that. You could imagine this taking up a portion of the economy like it does now and oscillating over time. Money systems are very important. We need to make sure they work. Minting rates could be experimented with, and new coins could be created if need be. So, you know, Lunar creates a new coin to do the decentralized Wikipedia. It trades on the open market and floats at whatever rate is necessary. Minting rates, okay, well, we don't really know what the real inflation rate is. If the Bank of International Settlement says, oh, we just found $13 trillion, well, the reality is we don't know how fast money is being printed, and that's you know, we will know with these technologies. And we can therefore test it scientifically and see which rates really work and which rates don't. So, you know, your money of the future is going to be transparent. it's going to be mathematically regulated. This should, in theory, prevent hyperinflations, or if not, completely eliminate them. Change in policies vetted by large groups of people. Large groups of people tend to make good decisions together. It's good for this policy change not to be decided by one person ultimately, which is the way the Federal Reserve is set up right now. There's a committee. Ultimately, one person holds the power, but I think that this is so important that, it's better if we have multiple minds on it. Highly secure and becoming more and more secure. And it could support critical infrastructure with the minting of it. So, I don't know what more you want in money technology. This is the best stuff I can think about right now. So in comes Nexus. What are we doing to add to this future puzzle? As Colin showed you yesterday, we're doing 3D blockchain technology for unlimited scalability. So this allows us to open up more minting channels like I talked about in the future, and it allows the network to scale up. So the technology he's building leads to growth in the transactional processing power of the system as the node count increases. Multiple minting channels for decentralization. So as he kind of talked about, in mining, you could imagine a way that people could amalgamate more and more power in one of these sectors. And if they have control over certain key aspects of money, it's not a good setup for a money system. What you really want is multiple interested parties, all who have to come to an agreement on something, and then you're going to end up with, something that reflects the true wants and desires of the whole system itself. Advanced cryptography. This, it provides quantum resistance, the signature chains. It's more secure. That it's an advance in the money technology. Scripting engines for contracts, another advance in the money technology, reduces drudgery in the back office. And most importantly, it's built on solid principles, and that's the principles that I'm up here talking about. We really want to do the right thing for people and move this technology forward in a way that benefits everybody. And if the free market decides that this technology is worth something, then we'll see that. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Anybody has questions?
Got a few minutes here for Q&A.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so what the important thing to focus on here is the protocol, right? And how the rules can be changed in the future. And that's why we talk about multiple minting channels, so where the coin emission is coming from. If you could imagine like 20 different minting channels that you still keep the same curve and you make sure that the economics work, but you have multiple minting channels, and then therefore you have various constituencies. So it helps prevent the 51% attack. It has a lot of benefits, but yeah, you're right, we have to do something about that, and that's exactly why we talk about more and more minting channels. And we believe that if you create enough of these, it's going to be highly decentralized. Yeah, in the back. Right, yeah, he said you don't need cryptocurrencies to have debt-free money, you just have to enforce the Constitution. He's absolutely right. We don't have to have debt-based money. The Treasury has the right to create money, but it's not the world we live in. Okay, the obligation, yeah. Mark? Yeah, I think like Yeah, he said it's a question about usability. How do we catch up to Visa or MasterCard? How do we make it simple and easy to use? Everybody's working on this right now. You just have to remember we're ahead of the technology curve when we're talking about this stuff right now. We're maybe 5-7 years ahead. So you're in here hearing about ideas that not a lot of people really truly fully understand. It's kind of like talking about what's the internet going to do for us in 1994. Yes. We are working on it. Multiple people are working on it. And I think as people develop new business models around this, that's where you could see a need for new financial intermediaries, right? Like we take a small little fee for, having the best wallet on the market or something like that. Anybody else? Yep. So the supply curve, I forget exactly what the timeline is, but it's kind of like Bitcoin. It goes up to about 78 million, and then it curves off. Colin actually has a really cool graph of this that we're going to put on the website. And then through the staking channel, we call it proof of holdings. So you receive a minting rate, not an interest rate. Interest implies repayment of debt. So the minting rate oscillates between 0.5% and 3% depending on your trust. So the loss in the back. Oh yeah, so the question is how can the money be printed with this technology? And the answer is that it's mathematically regulated. It's preset at the outset. So Bitcoin has a curve, a supply curve that goes up like this to 21 million. Nexus has one that goes up like this to 78 million. And then you have a 0.5 to 3% inflation that oscillates after that. So it's preset. It's like we all decide we're going to play this game. And we make the rules ahead of time, and then we go. You could make physical representations of cryptocurrencies. There's possibilities there is the answer. I don't think so. It might be. I don't pretend that I have all the answers, but there are some interesting things you could do with hardware. And I think that's my time. Thanks, guys.
All right. And while our next speaker is getting set up, I want to mention a few things to you as we continue through this. We love your energy. We love the questions that we're getting from you, and we encourage that. We want this to be a really profound time of learning and expanding your mind as you're here. And our next speaker right here is a guy I've been able to get to know and talk to, and he has some great ideas. His name is David North. He's the CEO of Sedgwick Insurance. And by the way, those of you that are talking, please continue your conversation outside. We would all appreciate that. Keep talking, but do it outside, and that will be good. And please close those doors when you can. But as he and I were talking before, I like to do this with all the speakers. Find out a little bit about what they're talking about. He's working with insurance. He knows that. He's been doing it for 21 years. And now he sees blockchain as a wonderful way to transform business. Today, he's going to share his insights into that, and it's something that we can all use, even if we're not directly in the insurance industry. We all use insurance, and we can learn and apply this in other areas. So I want you to join me in welcoming a wonderful guy, David North with Sedgwick Insurance.
Want to know why I'm here? I want to be in the room where it happens, right? I run, got to thank Len Manuel for that. I run a insurance company, a business we don't take cryptocurrency. I don't run any of my applications on your cyber stuff today. But I want to talk to you about why I care about being in this room, why people like me should care about being in this room. This is where I get my news. This is it's made from a tree. Some of you don't recognize this. It's a paper, and it's printed, and they sell this in stands. And this is the paper that I read. This is from the last 3 days. This is why I should care what's going on in this room. Here's the front page of one of them. And this is about being cyber breached of Equifax. The next day, Wall Street Journal, front page, Northrop deals fuels the space race for technology launching satellites. The next day, what should Bitcoin actually be worth? The next day, Trump takes aim at oh no, that's not your fault, right? Yeah, see, stuff we don't understand, old guys like me, we just assume it's all your fault anyways and that you put Trump in office, but okay, we'll let that go. I want to tell you a little bit about my business because I think it matters to why I care about your business. And I describe it this way. 20,365. 20,365. Today in this country, 20,365 people woke up, and they were going about their day. They were going to go to work, or go to school, or come to a conference, or do whatever they were going to do. And sometime today, each of those 20,365 people, something is going to happen to them. They're going to get in a car accident. Their house is going to catch on fire. They're going to get injured at work. They're going to find out they're pregnant, or they're going to find out they have cancer. And by the end of today, each of those 20,365 people are going to talk to somebody at my company, and they're going to tell them it's going to be okay. That the promises that were made with an insurance policy for the day that came today are going to be made. Those promises are going to be made. And that's what we do for a living. There's other ways. And think about this from the insurance industry. I'm going to read you a paragraph. Insurance is a contract between an insurance company and insured, either an entity or an individual. The insured must have an insurable interest to protect, and the insurer agrees to indemnify the insured for the covered loss. Coverage is based upon the terms of the contract, definitions of those terms, application limitations, and exclusions to coverage. The insurer owes a duty of utmost good faith, but assumes the application is opaque, complete, and subject to verification. Now, I've only been here for a couple of days, but you tell me, does that sound like something that a smart contract could fix and make better? By the way, just so you don't think the insurance industry is a large, lethargic, bureaucratic institution, I sent a text at 7:57 a.m. yesterday to one of our lawyers to ask for that short paragraph, to tell me that I could read to you about what insurance is all about. He replied very quickly at 9:29 a.m. with the following. I have to read you this quote. I will have something for you by the close of business on Monday. In the world of business, a request on Friday morning with an answer on Monday, close of business, is responsive. That didn't quite work for what I was trying to do here. So I shared with him another concept in business. It's called an org chart. And I reiterated my request to him, and 27 minutes later, I had the paragraph that I just read to you. So sometimes it works. Anyways, so I've struggled a little bit when my friends asked me to come here and talk with you for a few minutes about insurance and business and how this could all affect what we do. And I'm not a technologist, and I'm not a social scientist. I'm not a financial guru about cryptocurrency. But I do realize that technology and the movement of technology is changing the world completely. I would say to you, even in this room, that blockchain is not the thing, but it is the next thing. In my lifetime, I've seen the development of mainframes and laptops and 1981, something called MS-DOS, and the internet, and then the cloud, and now blockchain. The pace of change in our industry is incredible. I look back at what happened in the last election, the most previous election, and if you recall back 8.5 years ago when President Obama was elected, there was a huge buzz about the technology that was going to occur. And I look back, and President Obama at the time, the number of Twitter followers that he had was 118,000. And he had Facebook followers of about 2 million. The big technology thing that occurred when he took office, if you remember, was he had his own personal BlackBerry. And he texted people himself. And the world was going, oh my God, the president is going to use technology directly. He's going to send texts. And they ultimately ended up with the president giving up his BlackBerry, and he did not text the rest of his presidency. Trump won the election, and he had 38.8 million followers on Twitter. There's no sign in sight that he's going to stop with his texts. There's a concept in business that has been around for a while. A guy by the name of Michael Hammer from MIT is sort of attributed with it in 2010. And the concept is very simple. It's better, faster, cheaper. And in the earliest days of my business career, we talked about better, faster, cheaper, and it was a very simple concept. You just had to pick two, and you could start a business. If you were better and faster, you didn't have to be cheaper because people would pay for it. And if you were faster and better, you could be very expensive. You could see you could apply either of those. And if you had high quality and you were very expensive, you could be slow. People will wait for it. And the world was very tolerant of those three. That you actually could maybe get all three. You could be better, faster, and cheaper than your competition. And certainly you had to say you could. And then the era of technology came. And when technology started to take over the business environment and we started adopting it across the board, where speed and innovation were the fundamental elements of what we were doing in business, we realized we had to be all three. We had to be better, faster, and cheaper. And in the blockchain world, what I'm learning is the blockchain probably adds a third dimension to it, a dimension of culture, a generational issue of the way you talk about the technology. The stuff you are messing with matters to me. It doesn't matter to me because it's cooler, or because it's free, or because you might have a social experiment to change the way the world operates. It matters to me because I think your technology could take my company out. It could take my company out if I don't pay attention. Blockchain is not just technology. It's not a social phenomena. It's not a platform for financial system independence. It's all of that. If it were just technology, if it were just one more cyber-proof or better cyber platforms for us to run our business, I wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be on the CEO's desk. I would have had a technology guy here, and we'd be paying attention, and we would adopt some of it, and we'd buy the code and make some programs, but it's more than that. I think the blockchain is slang for a movement embodying a way of thinking that the status quo is nowhere near good enough. That better, faster, cheaper really means best, fastest, and free. You want the blockchain and cyber cryptocurrency to change business? It probably doesn't start with killing CEOs of major banks, shutting down the Fed, and stopping all government regulation. The pace of change is fast, but there's an evolution to change, even if it starts with a revolution. Change does involve human behavior. This fourth dimension, this cultural aspect to the technology that you're bringing to the world, at least for now, matters in how it plays out to human beings. The disruption caused by technology doesn't generally mean that the underlying thing will go away. It may disintermediate it. It may accelerate it. It may increase its efficiency. It may improve its effectiveness. But the concept of applying to technology to business still means the something is still there. And if that is still there, someone has to adopt the new process and someone has to agree to use it. You are smarter and you are faster than we are. You are also more expensive. You're also not immune from cultural differences. We're learning that your generation thinks and acts differently, and as a result, how we lead has to change. In the 90s, we taught managers a simple thing. You had to know the questions to ask, and you could be a good manager. In the 2000s, things changed, and we realized that leaders had to know the answers to questions. And so leaders provided answers. And now we know that the pace of change is so fast that it's not enough to have the answers to the questions. You have to question the answers. The answer was probably accurate for the question, but not correct enough to take action with, because the question would have been formed in a different time now versus then. And even if it's now is today, the question was yesterday. So I say to you, even in what you do, don't fall in love with the answer. Fall in love with finding the answers. I'll give you an example for that. We've spent the last 10 years, for the most part in business, trying to understand one thing or more about millennials. And one of them was this concept of working at home. And it became all of the rage in business. So we really studied it. And we had lawyers and human resource people and managers and productivity people all trying to figure out work at home. And we figured it out. It's available all over the country now. And we ended up with the answer to the question of how to work at home. And then we realized something. You didn't want to work at home. You wanted a home environment at work. You wanted a place to come be social, but a cool place, a place that was more comfortable, not the offices that I sat in, not the cubes that I built for 50 years, but you wanted a social environment at work. We didn't question the answer. We were so focused on getting an answer to the question. So don't fall in love with the answer. Fall in love with finding the answers. I want to give you a quick example, a couple things in insurance of how blockchain might actually apply. So there's an area that we're all involved in and we all participate in, and it's called an automobile insurance policy. And if you went to buy a car anytime recently, you know that one of the things that you have to do before you can actually buy the car is prove that you have insurance to buy the car that you don't yet own. You've got to prove you have insurance. And then before you even leave the dealership, we try to sell you some other things. We sell you extended warranties and tire insurance and paint and chip insurance, glass coverage, emergency roadside coverage. When you get home, we send you a policy and it's got collision and comprehensive and liability and uninsured motorists and medical payments and rental coverage. And oh, by the way, if you're under 25, it doesn't matter because you try to rent a car, we're not going to rent you one anyways because we don't trust you. And then we send you the policy, and we send you a proof of insurance card, and we send you an accident reporting card, and we probably send you an addendum, and then we send you an invoice. And oh yeah, we sent them all in paper through the US mail to you. If you have an accident, we tell you to do this. Immediately call the police so that they can document what actually happened on paper. And we ask you, because we understand technology, to take out your phone and take a picture of the damage of the other car because we don't trust the insurance or the police report that we ask you to get. And then we ask you to write down the driver's license number of the other driver because we don't trust that the police would have written it down accurately on the form we asked you to get. And then when you call the adjuster, we tell you to go what repair service to go to, and they figure out how much it's going to be, and then we send an adjuster out to the place where we told you to take the car to see if we agree with the estimate from the people we told you to take it to in the first place. And then you take several months to get your car finished, and then they send the report in, and then we question the report of the place that we told you to take the car to, and then we send them probably 3 checks. Now, you get it. I don't know how long it would take us to figure out that that process is whacked. But I can't imagine that it would take very long for a 26-year-old quantum physics engineer from Nexus or Google to figure out that that system just has to be replaced. And the blockchain and a lot of the technology and thinking that you have would fundamentally change something that every single person in this country touches at some time, which is automobile insurance. There are a lot of other examples. Cedric's involved in a process right now with Google. Their engineers have come out to work with us because we're the largest administrator of these really efficient claims in the world. I should have separated those 2 concepts so it didn't sound so lame, but yeah, I do a lot of that stuff. So Google's out working with us now because they're trying to figure out with blockchain what are some applications that they should engage with, and they're working with Cedric to develop them. We have a consortium of 35 insurance companies that have put together $10.8 million. And we have 4 proof of concepts that we have developed with those 35 companies to actually convert some of the processes that we have today to the blockchain concept and processing to improve the way it works. Your thoughts are becoming reality for business today. I do want to take a moment to highlight what well may be one of the biggest obstacles that the Internet of Things and the digital transformation and all that includes Nexus is going to face. 1/4 of our citizens in this country do not have access to the web. 3/4 of those people are with the access to the Internet. It's not an issue whether someone has access to cryptocurrency or can transact commerce. It's more basic than that. Not long ago, when our kids went to school, they were all equal when they left. They had a book, and they had a pen, and they had a paper, and they had access to a library, and they could do their homework. And they would go about that, and the better would rise. Today, with 1/4 of our country not having access to the Internet, we are creating a separation, a digital literacy issue in this country that disadvantages, by design, by effect, 1/4 of the population because they just can't do their homework the way the kids who have access to the Internet can. The gap that's being created in the development of minds and the ideas resulting from that fact is significant. And it's a digital divide that as we create these technologies and these conversations, we can't forget that they don't exist if the society does not have access to the Internet. I also want to note, you are way too white and you are way too male as I walk through your meetings here. The world is more gender diverse and more ethnically diverse than your rooms are filled with. You need to reach out. You will benefit from a more diverse, inclusive set of minds. You're also going to be followed by a new generation. And by the way, you guys are no piece of cake. The good thing when we were trying to figure out, my generation was trying to figure out yours, is that you were expressive. You told us, the generation before you told us what they wanted and we did it. You were not that expressive. You expected that we would understand what you want, need, and deliver it. But you didn't think you needed to tell us what you want and needed. We had to figure it out. I would tell you that the next generation is going to be worse. When we talk about communications, just remember about how your message is communicated. My dad, his generation, the communications were simple. He wanted a letter in writing with a signature. It's how he believed what he learned. In my generation, if you want to reach me, I want a phone call. I want to talk to you. It's how I best communicate. My wife, who's a little bit younger, grew up in an email age. And she has a hard time figuring out why she should have to take the time on the phone to talk to somebody when you can just send her an email. And my daughter grew up in the Twitter age, and so she's texting more people all at once. And the generation after her is working in a communication area that it's no longer one-to-one or one-to-few, it's one-to-all. And communications are changing dramatically. If you think about the audience of which your technology needs to be adopted by today in business, in 2016, the Fortune 100 CEOs, on the average, were in their job only 6 years. That's on the average. They're 59 years old, they're male, they're white, they're educated with masters and bachelors in business. There's only 9 of them, by the way, that are female. None of them are under 30 years of age. There are only 5 of the 100 of them that are of people of color. 1 of them has a doctorate. 9 of them have financial backgrounds, and only 2 have technology education. You may not like that, and it may spark you to walk out of this room and say, that's the problem. It's the man that caused all the problems. But for now, we control the world of business that you want to change. Ignore them and believe that it's all about you, and change will happen. But if you understand your enemy, your opportunity, your most hungry audience for a new and better idea, and change will happen even faster. Understanding each other is critical to changing business or our society for that matter. The next generation will not think like you. They won't see how you change the cloud to blockchain or the monetary system to cryptocurrency. And most disheartening, they won't care. They will care about something, and it will be amazing, and it will be scary to you, and it won't make much sense. But let them in the room with you. The room you are creating will change business. It will change our society, and we want to be in the room with you when it happens. The room needs you and me and her and them. Thank you for letting me be in the room with you today. I sat through the Q&A sessions and some of those other sessions. Hell no, I don't have time for questions. What do you think, I'm nuts? I didn't get this far being exposed to that.
What did you think? That's great. All right, let's go for it.
I'd be happy to take questions if you have any. Yes, sir. Yeah, so the question is that I walked through the rooms and made the observation of being that the rooms were too white and male, and that I've probably seen that in our business and industry in general, and absolutely that's the case. In our business, in the insurance industry, is a little bit different than general industry. We're 73% female, 36% minorities, 51% of our colleagues are single, 26% of our single colleagues are single parents. So when you have an organization that is that heavily concentrated, you pay a little bit more attention because that's how you run your business. But generally, I would say that those Fortune 100 folks, the people like me that are out there, this issue is very much, we understand it. And it's not a moral issue. I actually don't care personally whether you care about diversity or gender equality. That's a personal issue for you, and you are entitled to that right. But when you come into my company, it matters to our business. And I was only suggesting that in your business, it matters a lot. If we don't have 51% of the population, which are the women, represented in the room, we are missing 51% of the most brilliant, innovative ideas. And you can choose to ignore them if you want, but if you don't have them in the room, you don't have an opportunity to think inclusively about it. And so it's something we have to work hard at, And I'm not being critical of you, I'm critical of everyone just because I think that's what we need to do in our society. Yes? Yeah, it's a good question. The question was that I happened to be here today because Jacinda was kind enough to invite me, and so we had a connection. And if we didn't have that connection, I wouldn't be in this room. And how do we have a connection? How do you have a connection with people like me or others in business, the traditional business today? By the way, I haven't got to go to a conference where I didn't have my shirt tucked in a long time. It's kind of cool. I like that. No, we might have a new dress code at Sedgwick, though. We'll see what happens. I would say that it's as much you reaching out as it is us reaching out to you. And it is occurring both ways. I held those papers up for a reason. Not the same terminology that you write. The language is different that we use today, but the fundamental issues are exactly the same. The issues of cybersecurity, every single CEO and boardroom is talking about that. The issue of how to more efficiently process the things that we process using technology is a fundamental part of what we do every day. The issue of trying to find new and innovative ways to do it better than our competition, and finding better ways to hedge our currency and find better ways to move money around, is something we talk about every day. So as you evolve and as you do conferences like Nexus Earth, I think you find companies like us looking for you as much as I would encourage you to look for us and come to our agendas. You'll have to tuck your shirt in, but come to our conferences and talk about it as well. Yes, sir. I think everybody probably heard your comment. I couldn't agree more. I think finding ways to do that is a noble objective. I would tell you that there is a gap between today, not just in the reality of cryptocurrency and it becoming a main way of transacting business. There's also a gap in understanding this issue of people like me fundamentally understanding what you are trying to do. And I think interpreting it as the evil empire, or that we don't want it, or you scare us, and we're doing things in the back room to make sure it doesn't happen. I think mostly you'd be wrong. I don't hear those conversations. I think most of the conversations, we just don't understand it, and it scares us a little. And there's phrases that you generally about that the blockchain is cyber-proof, that the cryptocurrency world allows transactions that are free and unencumbered, and those concepts bother people like me. I have to admit I go, well, if they're all free, how are you going to make any money? And you created cyber blockchain to replace the cloud because you were sitting in a garage doing it, and why isn't there somebody down the street thinking about how to hack you? And I think you're better. I just think that the lexicon has to change a little bit so that we find common paths. Sir. I appreciate that. I want to repeat what he said. He said, I'm a diamond in the rough. Blah, 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 diamond in the rough. I also think that we can't ignore history, too, of what happens in businesses. Businesses have this, particularly successful ones, the ones we quote, the ones we think about, the ones whose names, Jamie, what's his name, that catches a lot of grief. These are, I know his name. So these companies work really hard to build and get successful, just like you are doing. And when you get to the top, it's when it actually is the worst. I run the largest insurance claims service organization in the world. And getting there was an enormous amount of fun. Staying there is a bitch. Everybody's taking their shot. I'm sorry, Sonny, I said bitch. I didn't mean to say. My 16-year-old daughter's here, so. So staying there is really hard because everybody's taking shots, and everything you did to get to where you are, if you repeat that, somebody tomorrow will kill you because you did the same thing 2 days in a row. And so I think these companies are, they're talking about it. They're maybe not out loud, not bloggers. There was a book that was written in the insurance world and in the business world called Good to Great. I don't know how long ago it was written, 20 years ago or something. And it was the #1 New York best time seller, and you can still buy it today. Not one company that's named in that book that Peterson did of Good to Great that was epitomized as the best in the country exists today in their own name. They're all gone. And so businesses are not trying to be obsolete, but they're trying to stay where they are. And we are, and I don't know how better to say this to you. You don't scare us, you just scare us a little. You don't scare us like, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that cryptocurrency never exists. I'm going to keep running my business really hard because I got a lot of people attacking me, and I got to learn about you and 16 other things. And, I promise you, I would not be here. That logo would not be here. I would not have written that check if I didn't think you had something. And I think I have a lot of peers that feel the same way. But it's going to evolve. It's not going to occur as a revolution. It's just not going to happen. But I think it's going to happen. I think for some of us, it's going to happen sooner rather than later, and we're going to win, and we're going to stay on top. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. We have 5 minutes. Yeah. I think that's what Jacinda was talking about too, about where we have to reach out to each other. And an observation of just one thing as well, it's easier for me as one person if blockchain and Bitcoin or cryptocurrency were not always linked in the conversation, because some of us get confused as to whether Bitcoin is really the only reason for the blockchain. And I would tell you today, at least in the non-financial institutions, because I'm not part of that, I can't speak to that, the blockchain is seen as an extremely powerful concept that we are now trying to understand. Bitcoin is behind that. We don't see it as one to the other, and maybe I'm just not getting it totally, but there are two concepts that may need to see the light of day, but blockchain has got a higher momentum right now, at least in the circle that I have. I have time for one more question, I'm told. Does anybody else have one? Sir, right here in the front row.
What's the one thing about this that gets you most excited and how it can apply to the business that you run?
So the question, what's the one thing about this technology that gets me excited about the business I run? I would say it's structural, because I'm in the transaction business, and the nature of insurance, just to be very focused on us, is all of the insurance policies are very similar in their structure. They have similar clauses and characteristics, and then we fly hundreds of thousands of transactions against those same policies every day. And the concept of a blockchain, of the way it will process data about smart contracts and the way that it could allow those transactions to occur much quicker, more independently, and with less upfront friction in the creation of them, because the contracts would exist differently, I think is a very exciting way to transform a lot of what our industry does. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, David, thank you. Excellent job. Great. And now, lunchtime, and we will see you back here at 12:45. Enjoy your lunch.